Hello everybody and welcome to another Walking Dead video. And today we'll be doing my review for The Walking Dead Season 11 Episode 20, What's Been Lost. And it has been another week, so another episode, so let's jump right into this review. So this episode is broken into two plots. It's very clean which plots we have. We have the Yumiko plot, which is dealing with everyone going missing and Yumiko having to deal with Pamela, wanting her to prosecute Eugene. And then we have the second plot, which is the Darren Carol plot, which is about Darren Carol. They go get Lance, and then they're trying to go find the people that's gone missing. I'm not gonna lie, one of these plots is definitely better than the other. I was very much interested in the Darren Carol / Lance plot, even though Daryl kind of disappears halfway through and he Deus Ex Machina's back at the end. It was a very fun plot to have Lance and Carol back together. But the Yumiko plot, I didn't like as much. I felt like the Yumiko plot was filler. And yes, it needed to happen. We need to see Yumiko deal with this and then decide that she's going to stand up to Pamela. However, I feel like it could have been a smaller plot. This is like 50% of the episode is dedicated to Yumiko following someone. We meet Connie. Connie gets captured off screen. It'd be cool if we actually saw that. Maybe if they diverted a part of this plot away, so you had a kind of splinter plot where you had Connie going off and Yumiko going off, and we see Connie get captured and Connie gets taken, and we watch this happen, and the episode ends with Connie being put up with the group and we see where they are. I just think it'd be better to have a Connie subplot with the Yumiko plot to break up Yumiko's kind of boringness, because it does drag the episode slightly, going from the more action-packed side of the episode, which is with Carol and then Lot fighting the Commonwealth and then some walkers, to Yumiko just following a man through the street because she wants to do something and talking to her brother. It's kind of I would have to say there are some bonuses of Yumiko's plot. I can't just look at it and be like 50% of this episode is really bad. No. I really like Pamela. She is really good. She's really becoming the villain, and I'm very interested to see where she's going on. I like how they push Lance out of the way. Like, Lance was the start of the Commonwealth arc, then we kind of had Sebastian kind of in the middle being the little villain for certain characters, and now we have Pamela for these last few episodes going full villain. I really like it. I feel like it's a little too late. I feel like this could have happened earlier on. Maybe episode 14, not episode 19, 18, when she turns into villain. She was kind of clueless in the first few episodes, and it made her kind of stupid and annoying, and now she's this villain. I really like it. I think it's really interesting. I really want to see where she's going, because they push Lance out of the way. They focus on Pamela being the main villain. But I just feel like it could have happened sooner, because the actor is really carrying Yumiko's plot. I feel like whenever Yumiko's plot is on, I do not care about Yumiko. I do not care about our problem. I don't care that she's like, oh, what do I do, Tommy? I could either prosecute Eugene, everyone's safe, or do I stand up for what's right? I don't care. The only thing I care about is Pamela being this kind of more ruthless person and slowly becoming more and more villainous. Other than the mediocrity of the plot B with Yumiko and everything like that, the plot A with Carol, Lance and Daryl, I really liked it. I thought it was good, very interesting. I would have liked more kind of insight on Lance, personally, as we see Lance, this destroyed man, in the cell at the start of the episode. Once they find him, we get nothing, basically. They just kind of pick him up, they leave, and that's it. They're now suddenly outside, minus Daryl. I feel like you could have done more with kind of Lance in that cell, unravel his character a bit more to find out more about him, and find out why he was in that state, because we just go, okay, Lance like this, we're now suddenly outside the walls of the Commonwealth, we get a really bad shot of the Commonwealth from a distance. I feel like we could have had more there and less from the Yumiko plot. I feel like the Yumiko plot has taken away from this plot a little. Like, we have missed some things. I would have liked to see them escape better, and less of them just kind of walking in the woods. And then they go into a, like, kind of mine for no reason, to be like, oh, there's walkers, and then leave, and you're like, what do you expect? There are also some downsides to this plot, and one of that is the massive convenience that everyone but conveniently Daryl and Carol get captured. I know we do see Daryl actually struggling to fight, and the only reason he isn't captured is because of Carol, and I like that. I like that Daryl isn't this, like, plot armor thick character who's immune to everything. No, Daryl, if Carol wasn't there, would have been captured just like everyone else. And to be honest, I kind of preferred if he was, because yet another episode where Daryl is just an extra figure and he could easily be replaced with anybody. This episode could clearly just be Carol escaping from her captors and then finding out everyone else is gone and then going to Lance and escaping. Daryl is just there to be the reason they get out of their predicament at the end of the episode. When they get surrounded, Daryl just kind of teleports behind them. That's literally all Daryl does in the episode and all he adds to the episode, other than talking to Carol at the start of the episode. It just seems really annoying that Daryl is constantly getting the short end of the stick in episodes. Like, he's in a lot of episodes, but he's not really doing much. Like, last episode, he was just kind of there. Like, you could have replaced him with Rosita. And it's the same in this episode. Daryl only adds one thing to this episode, and you could easily give it to a character like Lance. When Lance and Carol are surrounded, Lance plays the situation and then kills the Commonwealth soldiers with the help of Carol, and that's it. It's something simple like that. You could easily cut Daryl out of the story, so why is he in this episode? Other than to be like, we need him to help Carol in the next episodes, because we need him as the main character. Then why is he not the main focus of the plot? I just don't like how Daryl's meant to be the main character, but he always feels a side character in his own show. I don't know how he's going to do his own show if he will be outshined that easily. Okay, so let's talk about the looks, visuals, and everything else like that about the episode. As we have now talked about the actual what's in the episode, let's talk about how it was presented and worked. So, I really like the way this episode looked. It was kind of nice. It is good because they are using digital now, which is great, but there's nothing special. Like, there is a couple of really cool shots. I like the shot at the end where they go through the mask to see Ezekiel. Other than some really cool shots, it is getting kind of a normal Walking Dead episode. The new quality of normal. This new normal is way above old normal, but it's getting normal now. It's no longer special, and I might even stop mentioning it. The music, though. I love the music. I really like the music for Pamela when she's doing something sinister or whenever she's on screen. The Pamela theme song, I would rate it almost as good as the Reaper song, even though the Reaper one's like really jungle, like kind of Predator-like. This one is good. I really like the music throughout this entire episode. This episode definitely has better pace than the last episode. Last episode was an absolute slog and boring, but this episode has better pacing. Even though I don't like half of the episode, I feel like it is kind of needed. There is a slight bit of filler in it. However, I feel like it is cut well. Like saying how last episode was like 90% Commonwealth, 10% action with the people we actually cared about. This episode feels more 50-50, so you're okay with the Yumiko story because you're getting the action, the Daryl story, and it is spliced quite well throughout because you're flipping back and forth very frequently, so the pacing is not being destroyed. It only slows down slightly, but the pacing overall is a good paced episode. I didn't look at my watch and be like, okay, when's the action going to start? When's the episode going to end? When the episode ended, I was like, okay, that's the end of the episode, and I felt like that was a good amount of time for an episode. So it does have good pacing. It is not as boring as last episode. It is an entertaining episode because there is action. They know when to cut away most of the time to the story you actually care about. So this does have some massive ups compared to episode 19. Now let's talk about the ending of this episode. But before we go into that, spoiler warning. I will not mention names, but I will mention what happens and situations, but I will try and keep it as vague as possible. So there are spoilers because you'll know this will happen, but you don't know to who, what, where, and stuff like that. So be warned. Slight spoilers. I will try to keep it vague, but let's jump right into this. So the ending of this episode is pretty good. I quite like the shock value of this episode, and when this happened I was like, oh look, they're doing like a Fear the Walking Dead where they're doing deaths every 2 episodes, so maybe a death in episode 22, but we get a big character death at the end of this episode, and I felt like this is another well executed death. I don't know how they executed Alden's death so badly when we've had 2 other deaths this season and they've been absolutely amazing. I really like this death. It works for the character, it works for the situation, and when this situation is going down, you're like, I really want this character to die. And they actually do it. I got scared that they weren't going to commit to the death. I thought this would be a situation where this character's going to come back and you'd be like, oh, you're alive. But no, they did commit to death. And it worked so well. Because they are going in a new direction now. And some characters are no longer needed. So I'm happy they are cutting off the fat. However, this death does add to my feeling that, where are all the deaths? I'm getting slightly annoyed that we're in the final season of The Walking Dead, only 3 major characters have died, and some of these major characters have been introduced in the later seasons. We have so many characters from season 4, 5, 6, stuff like that, and they just ain't dying. And I really don't like how the shock factor and the thing of The Walking Dead is gone, that we're only getting new characters being killed off that have been introduced in the last 3 seasons, and we're just not having characters we like die, or characters that have been around die, and the cast is just too big. We're in the final season. Look at Game of Thrones. They had 5 major character deaths in 1 episode alone, and I'm waiting for one of those episodes in The Walking Dead. Where is our version of The Long Night? Where is our big fight where a bunch of characters die? And we're just not. We're just getting, okay, a character dies off screen, new character dies, and we're in the final 4 episodes now, and I want to see at least 3 more characters die for this season to be worth it, because so far this season, as the final season, has one of the lowest main character deaths in all of The Walking Dead. It's really stunned for the final season to have so many characters left alive, and knowing how all the main characters, like the big 4, are going to survive, really takes away from the show. So kill off the minor characters, but they seem to be scared to do that, and I'm going to try and get away from this tangent and talk about something else. So, the ending of this episode was good. I like the death. However, this episode didn't hook me. This episode wasn't like episode 18 or 17, which hooked me and made me want to see more. This episode just didn't have that. I could go like a week and a bit without seeing another episode. Like, that is not a very good ending. Each ending needs to be a good thing that makes me draw me back, and it didn't really. So let's talk about one sentence as moment over review. So overall, this episode does have some very enjoyable moments. Like, there are some good fights, the pacing is good. It might go down slightly whenever you're with Rumiko and drag slightly, but overall the pacing is good. This episode does feel slightly filler on Yumiko's side, and I thought the Yumiko plot overall is very mediocre. This episode is basically being carried by Pamela in the Yumiko plot, and by the Carol, Daryl and Lance plot, which I thought was a good plot all the way through and was very entertaining. This episode looked good, it sounded good, it was overall, I would have to say, this is a good episode, and it is very enjoyable. This is an enjoyable episode. That would be what my sentence would be. This is an enjoyable episode. But please tell me down below, what do you think about this episode? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What are your massive pluses? What are your massive negatives with this episode? I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions and anything down below. And this is it for me today. So if you want more Walking Dead content, please look on the screen. If you want to see last week's review, look in the top right. If you want to see something recommended for you, look in the bottom. And if you want to see the latest video, look in the top left. And feel free to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all things Walking Dead and to help out the channel also. If you want 2 videos every week, make sure to subscribe here. But this is it for me today. So goodbye, peace out, and I'll talk to you at a later date.